Put your faith in the light.
Hello guys, welcome to another one of my videos. This is Lightblade. And well guys, as you can see, we are in the Dragonflight Beta with the new build. Yes, this afternoon Blizzard showed us the patch notes, well, a blue post of all the changes they did to all the classes on this new build. For Retribution Paladins, most of those changes were just number changes, but there's a lot of under the hood changes that Blizz did that they didn't put in those patch notes, and that's what I'm going to be talking about here. But first, let's bask in the glory of the most important change they did, and that's giving us a B-Res. Yes, finally Paladins, the class that should have had B-Res from the start of WoW, because well, the Paladin in Warcraft 3 has a B-Res as its ultimate, now finally has a battle res. And this is really big for red paladins. I said this before in my last video, because well, we didn't bring any vital utility, and now we have this battle res. And even though it's a bit diminished, because well, next expansion everyone's going to be able to use the engineering battle res, even if you're not an engineer, it's still nice to have a class that has the real battle res in its kit, you know, because well, the engineer one can actually fail, and when that happens, it's catastrophic. So this is going to be make us a bit more eligible for Mythic Plus groups and probably rates also. And well, now let's go into the real changes that happened under the hood and the Blizz didn't actually tell us. Okay guys, let's talk about those changes that Blizz did under the hood that they didn't announce in the blue post. So basically, they did move around a lot of stuff. They said that in the blue post. They made some talents accessible without sacrificing, or they made some utility talents accessible without sacrificing our DPS, which is now, like you can see, I can take all the utility, Blessing of Freedom, Lay on the Hands, my cleanse, horse, everything I need without sacrificing any points of DPS, which is really nice. They also did do some changes to the placements of some of these talents. I remember this rebuke wasn't here, and I think it was kind of here. So they did move around some stuff. For example, they made this Avenging Wrath node. Instead of 2 nodes, it's only 1 that's now in charge of all the buffs for Avengers Wrath, I mean. So that's really good. You know, at the moment, this is kind of bugged though, because it doesn't apply to Crusade. As you can see here, if I mouse over Crusade, it says it has a 3-minute cooldown, while it should have a 2-minute cooldown if I use this talent. As you can see here, if I swap to Wings and apply changes, it's going to change the cooldown back to 2 minutes. And there it is. As you can see there, it's 2 minutes. So it's currently not applying the changes to our Crusade spell, which I'm hoping it's a bug, because it also doesn't apply the changes when you use Sanctified Wrath. So Sanctified Wrath doesn't actually do anything for Crusade, and I'm thinking both spells are kind of bugged. Maybe something happened with the name and it's just not applying the effect or something like that. Anyways, another thing that bothers me a bit here is that they did some optimization on some nodes, but horse still 4 points of talents wasted here. You have to use 1 for horse, 1 for the 2 charges, and 2 to increase the duration, which I'm thinking is just too much. Maybe just bake in the duration in with the 2 charges or something like that, because 4 points for horse is just really bad. It also makes me salty because they kept horse and removed a long arm of the law. Anyways, and the other big change they did is Mad Paragon. So this spell, this talent before said Hammer of Wrath and Judgments deal 10% additional damage and extend the duration of Avenging Wrath by 0.5 seconds. This was always bugged in the alpha back then and all the builds before, because it never actually affected Judgments. So technically we never could have tested this, but it was implied that in the tooltip that Judgments would have been a good source of extending wings, which made me think of a build just focused on most of the Judgment talents from the Retribution Paladin 3 to extend our wings and have like those really long and bursty windows of Avenging Wrath or Crusade, you know. Now with this change, basically that build is completely dead, and Mad Paragon is kind of going back to just being a kind of meh talent that it won't be taking us much, you know. But when a door closes, a window opens, and now we can go to the left side of our general talent tree. And we can look at of Dusk and Dawn, which is it's a pretty decent damage increase, and it's basically on 99% of the time, because this buff is really easy to maintain. You just reach 5 holy power and you get the Blessing of Dawn, which gives you 6% extra damage. When you reach 0 holy power, you get Blessing of Dusk, which reduces the damage you take by 4%. Pretty nice defensive there. And when you go to Seal of Order, this doubles down on both aspects. It gives you an extra 10% damage, so a total of 16% extra damage. That's maintainable 99% of the time, and you also get some armor and extra healing when you go into the Dusk phase, which is really nice. Basically, this is just a really nice passive damage increase and survivability increase. It's not as explosive as the Mad Paragon could have been. We will never know because we actually couldn't test this. It was just mostly theory crafting with the tooltips and the talents that we had at that time. Anyways, guys, those are the changes on the general side. Now let's go to the changes on the Retribution side. Okay guys, so for the Retribution specific talents, there hasn't been many changes. The only thing that happened is basically Divine Protection is back. In the last build they removed it, and I was getting a bit worried because I thought they were going to go back on their word like they did with the Long Arm of the Law. But it's back now. The only problem with it, it's a 2-minute cooldown talent. So with Unbreakable Spirit, it goes down to 1.4 minute cooldown. Defensive 20% reduction for 8 seconds. Still a bit weak. If they wanted to share a slot with Shield of Vengeance, I'm thinking they should make it, when we pick Unbreakable Spirit, make this thing a 1-minute cooldown defensive, you know? That way it can actually serve as an option with Shield of Vengeance. But the better thing to do would be just to move the Divine Protection from this node to this node and just remove Just a Cursed Vengeance. I've said this in a lot of videos. I know it's getting repetitive, but please remove Just a Cursed Vengeance. It just makes sense. This node also has another damage reduction talent. Eye for an Eye does a huge physical damage reduction of 35%. And having the other damage reduction here that's more general, but it's weaker because it's only 20% here, just makes sense. You know, it's just, I think, the correct thing to do. But for whatever reason, Blizzard just wants to keep Just a Cursed Vengeance here. I don't know what's the fixation with this talent. I have no idea what's happening there, but I hope they do something like that. Another thing, most of the Judgment talents here are still pretty usable. Don't think because I said the Judgment build is dead that those talents are bad. The Judgment talents are pretty decent because they give us nice sustained damage, because the bouncy Judgments, for example, still debuff the target. And that debuff is percentage damage increase, which stacks with other percentage damage increases, which we already have on this side of the tree. We have of Dusk and Dawn, and we have Seal of Order, which is 16% extra damage increase that stacks with the bouncy Judgment debuff, which makes it a pretty decent sustained damage option. So don't worry, most of the Judgment talents are still usable and pretty viable. Okay, one thing that's not okay is that since they moved down Divine Toll here, the capstone talent for that row is now Divine Resonance, which is a really lackluster talent compared to the other options. Divine Resonance reads like this. For example, after casting Divine Toll, you throw 3 judgments. That's your capstone. You get 3 free judgments, which is so weak compared to, for example, Final Reckoning, which calls down the Blast of Light, with debuffs your targets by 50% damage and does uncapped AoE damage. Or Vanguard's Momentum, which gives you a bunch of extra free damage. I think it's 12% extra free damage or something like that. It's really strong. Or even the Execution Sentence options, which one is really strong in single targets. Basically going to be our go-to option for raids and single target fights, because it extends the duration of Execution's Sentence and it makes it deal massive damage. And the other one is really good for Cleave, because as long as you can keep your target in the group of AoE, you're going to do massive Cleave damage. So Divine Resonance as a capstone talent is kind of lackluster here, and there's an easy solution here. You can just add the Conduit of Shadowlands of Divine Toll to Divine Resonance here. So instead of only giving you Divine Resonance, you also get those free 4 extra judgments that you can proc, RNG proc, you know? That would make this option a bit more viable, you know? Anyways, guys, those are all the changes that happened under the hood. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff that Blizzard actually didn't say in the blue post. But I wanted to keep you guys informed, so I just wanted to make this video. Okay, guys, well, if you enjoy my content and like it, well, like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps me a ton. Thanks for watching, guys.